Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You're watching Indigo Tech Tutorials. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build a social media platform like TikTok using Ruby on Rails. This is something that I've been meaning to do for a while, especially back when TikTok was banned. I really wanted to, rebuild the app and just show you guys how easy it is to build an app like this using Rails. So let's hop right into it. The first thing I'm going to do is just go over to the terminal. And then I'll zoom in here, and I'm going to first verify that I have Ruby on Rails installed by doing ruby-v and rails-v. So you'll notice I have Ruby 3.4 and Rails 8, which is basically all you're going to need to get started with this video. You could use like slightly older versions, but I recommend you to use the latest version because that's always the best idea when you're working with a web development framework. And yeah. Let's get straight into this. So I'm going to create the app by running the Rails new command. I'm just going to do Rails new, and then I'm going to put the name of the app, which will be TikTok-Rails. And then I'm going to set a couple options. So the first one is I'm going to set the database to PostgreSQL, because that's a database that I just like using, and I'm pretty familiar with it. But you could also just, not add this key, and it'll use the default database, which is also totally fine. Now we can also use I'm also going to set the CSS framework to use Tailwind by doing -c and then putting Tailwind. So now with this setup, we're going to generate our brand new app with Postgres and Tailwind. That's just what I want to do. And we can press enter to run this command. And it's going to go through and create the skeleton of our new TikTok app. This is already super cool. Very, very simple when you're building apps with Rails, just to get started and to generate the initial setup. Now it's taking a little bit longer right now because I think my internet speed is kind of slow where I'm at. So really like the part that's taking a while is the bundle install, just to get the initial libraries. But that is no problem because obviously coding doesn't need high internet speed. As long as you have some internet, you're going to be able to get all the things that you need for your app downloaded. You just have to give it, a little bit of time. Okay, so we got through the bundle install, and boom, just like that, we have our new app generated. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cd into the app, and then we can just start the server by typing bin/dev, which will start our server on localhost 3000, and we can verify that everything is working by going to the browser and heading over to localhost 3000. Now, the first thing you'll see if you're using Postgres is that you need to create a database, because it does not exist already, but there's this nice little button that you can press to create the database, or you can do it manually from the terminal. And just like that, you'll see that we're on this Rails screen, which means everything's set up. You can even see the Rails version, Ruby version, and it's the same exact one that I had in the console, so that's good. So now let's hop straight into building the app. So usually what I'll do is I'll build like a simple home page, just so that we don't have this default Rails screen anymore. And I think that's a pretty good place to start. So let's go into the terminal. I'm going to clear it out, and then I'm going to generate our first controller by doing Rails G controller. And then I'm going to create a pages controller, and then a home action. And if you want to add any other different pages right now, you could do that as well, like maybe an about page, terms of service, privacy policy. But really, all we really need is like the home action. I just want to show you guys that that is also possible. You can press enter, and it's going to create a couple things, mostly just the pages controller and the view. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our app in the code editor by typing code dot. This is going to open it up in VS Code, and we're going to be able to edit our code right here. So I'm going to come inside here, and I'll head over to the config routes.rb, and you'll notice that with our generator, it created a get route for pages/home up at the top of the routes.rb. But really, I want to use this as the root, so I'm actually just going to delete that route, go down to the bottom, uncomment the root, and I'm going to set this to pages and then the home action. So you use the # instead of the slash for defining the specific controller. So after we do that, we can go restart the server with bin/dev and go back in the browser and reload, and boom, we have this very simple homepage. Not really anything yet. So now I'm going to go and just do a really simple kind of page just to get us started. I'm going to go back to our code, and the first place I'm going to go is just the app views, and we're going to go to the layouts application. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this main container inside of the body. This is something that's added when you specify Tailwind as a CSS framework. For whatever reason, they add this main container because they think, people want containers, but I don't want a container because it adds all this padding around the content. And yeah, like let's say if I want to have a specific color for one page, it's a little bit trickier if there's all the padding around it. So I'm just going to straight up delete the container. If you guys want to leave that, you can, but yeah, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. So I'm going to go back to the views pages home. And if we reload, you'll notice that the padding is totally gone, so that's perfect. And what I'll do is I'll just delete all this content. And I'm going to create a new div, get a width full height screen, and then we can give it a background color. So I'll just do BG indigo for the background color. And right away, because we set width full and height screen, it should take up the full page. And we'll see this nice, indigo color taking up the whole page. If we want to do a gradient too, we could do that. So I could say like BG gradient 2, and then put the direction. So we could say like bottom, or we could say bottom right. We're going to go, top left to bottom right. And then we'll give it some colors. So I can say like from indigo 600 to purple 400. That might look cool. And if we reload, now we have this nice looking gradient. Then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a flex call class, item center, and then padding top. And right away, I'm just going to drop in H1 for our main header. I'm going to give this a little bit of styling. And then I'll give it the text, which is going to be TikTok. Really, it's like Rails. Maybe I'll say TikTok on Rails. Reload, and boom, we have this little setup. Although we can make the text larger if we want. But this is usually how I start. I just like create a little simple homepage. I mean, sometimes I don't, like in the last video I didn't, but anyways, I kind of want to add a font just for fun. So I'm going to copy our text and let's go over to DeFont, which is a website I use for fonts. I've been using this forever, actually, like ever since I was a little kid, because I think they're just really popular and have good SEO. You can go to like these different categories, drop your text in, and then see what it would look like, which is actually kind of cool because these fonts look pretty nice. Like, see this heart one, that could be good for Valentine's, which today is Valentine's Day. Let's do the matcha one. That one looks cool. So I'm gonna download it. It's gonna download. Of course, my internet is really slow right now, but fonts are so tiny, it really doesn't matter. I'm gonna come inside of here and we're going to bring our font into the app. So you might think that usually like we put all our stuff in the assets folder, and that is true, but the asset path can be pretty tricky. So for me, I would rather stick it in public because everything that you drop in the public folder gets automatically exposed as a URL in your app, which is something that you might not realize, but if you go into public, you'll see all of these things here are publicly available. So if you go to like, you go back to the browser and go to one of those files like /400.html, this is what it looks like. And that's like what gets rendered if there was a bad request, which means if you wanted to style this, you totally could, instead of having, all of this stuff, whatever this is, inline styling. We could totally redesign this and make it look better. All right, so yeah, anyways, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to this public folder and I'm gonna create a new folder called fonts. And then we'll go and we'll drop our font into here, just like this. I'm also gonna rename it just so that the route doesn't get confused. So I'm just gonna say matcha.otf. And now we have to go and define this in our CSS. I'm gonna go to App Assets, Style Sheets, Application. And I'm gonna add a font face. Now, one interesting thing is the new setup with Rails and the new version of Tailwind. They have a Tailwind folder. So I don't know if I should do it here, if I should do it in this one. I don't think it really matters. Sorry, I need to get a drink real quick. I don't think it really matters but let's try it out. So for the font family, that's going to be the name that you're going to use internally in your app. So I'll just call it Matcha. And for the URL, we're going to put the relative path, which would be /fonts, and then / the file name, which in this case, it's matcha.otf. And just like that, we now have this font family available to use, which is Matcha. Now to use it with Tailwind, what you'd want to do is edit the Tailwind config file, but for whatever reason, in Tailwind 4, there's no Tailwind config file. So that's already a little bit confusing. I'm just going to look that up. Tailwind v4, no config file. Like, what happened? So confused. Oh yeah, look, some guy on Stack Overflow even talked about this. Like, I can't find the Tailwind config file. Yeah, me neither. This is actually, what was this? Oh yeah, back in January. That's why. So they're saying you can still use a config file if you want to. But if you want, you can also just customize the theme, apparently. So I think I've seen this. So confusing though. Why did they change it so much? That's another reason why I don't really like Tailwind that much. Like each version, they're gonna totally change things. So how do maybe they'll say it somewhere. I want to just look for fonts, font family. Like how do I override font family? Or how do I add my own font? Oh wait, we can do it like this. I guess I didn't think about that. We could use so Tailwind supports like the bracket syntax. You can put an array, and then it'll interpolate whatever value you have into CSS. So I guess that's not really a bad thing. So that means to use this, we could go to app views, pages home, go back to that home page, and then we can set our font just using a dynamic setup. We could do the array syntax, and then I'll put the name, which is matcha, which I guess is fine. And if we reload, it does work. So, you know what? I'm pretty happy with that. Now, let's say we want to add like an icon. I wonder I forget what the TikTok icon is. Like this music kind of thing, because they used to be called Musical.ly too, and TikTok is all about putting music behind a video. I'm probably not going to even use their icon though. I don't want to get in trouble. Let's go to hero icons and look for music. There actually is one, although it doesn't really make sense for this. Let's see, maybe we can find like a video or a phone or something. I think TikTok is mostly about phone, and there actually is a phone thing right there. So why don't I want to put the phone like right before the text. What I'll do is I'll add a div around our header, and I'll add the flex class, which means the elements are stacked right next to each other. I'll do item center, gap 4, and then indent this, and let's drop in our icon, and give it a width and a color. Honestly, just having fun with this. So yeah, that's not bad, you know. Phone icon, Rails. We could even grab, instead of just saying Rails, we could put like the Rails logo, which I think I have on my computer. Yeah, I totally have it. But what I'll do is I'll drag that Rails logo into our app. And I'll actually stick this in the assets images folder just because referencing images in Rails is pretty easy. So I'll drag this over, and I am going to rename it to just rails.png. And what I'll do is I'll put the image tag right after the h1. So I'll do image tag, and then you could just directly put the path, or directly put the file name, which would be rails.png, and it's going to automatically know to look inside of the assets images folder because you're using image tag. And we can give it a little bit of styling. So let's just say like width, or let's give it a height 16. And let's see what that looks like. Rails. And then what I'll do is I'll just get rid of the Rails part, so it almost looks like just a seamless That's not bad at all. Yeah, that's cool. Maybe I'll make it a little larger. Give it a height 24. Maybe height 20. It's not bad. Although the item center kind of weird because it's like it doesn't look aligned correctly. So I wonder, instead of doing item center, we could try to do items end, which means it pushes them all to the bottom, which it should still be on line, in a line. Though it doesn't really work because the font has a little bit of spacing at the bottom. But these are things that you can kind of figure out. But actually, this isn't bad. I don't love it, don't hate it. Not too bad. Maybe I'll up the padding so it's a little bit farther down. Anyways, let's move on. If we wanted to, let's say, have like images, I don't really know what they have on TikTok, but I'm just having fun with this homepage. I'm getting like too creative, but we haven't even gotten to the app yet. Let's say I want to look up like happy people put on our app, so people know that this is all about having a good time. And also they have to have phones because it's all about being on your phone. It's like good time on the phone kind of vibe. I guess it could be any of these. You could do these. I was gonna do this, but it's premium. I'm a little broke right now for premium. How about this one? No, premium. Or no, it's not premium. But these ladies, they're gonna be the stars of my app. Although just the homepage. But they might get on it later. So then what I'll do, I'm going to drop this into assets images as well. And then I'm going to rename this to lady. What we'll do is right underneath our div with the text, what I'll probably do is I'll have two sections here. So on the left, we could have our image. On the right, I might put like the sign-in page. Yeah, I think TikTok usually has the option to like sign in right on the homepage. But what I really mean is I'll put the links to like sign in or create an account, and then maybe we can think about putting a form on this page later. But just to simply do the setup, I'm going to add a div here. Let's give it a grid. Instead of doing flex, we'll do grid calls 2. Because that'll actually like equally separate two sections down here, which is kind of a cool thing. Then we can have, basically we can just put the image tag, put in that path to the file, called it like dash lady dot, and then whatever the file path, jpg. And what we'll do is we'll give it a fixed height. Let's say height like 50 view height with full object. You could do object cover, although I think that would kind of center it. That's probably a good option. So that didn't really show up as I expected. I don't want to have like some rounded, and I also want to push it down from the text. So let's do margin top 8. Start with that. I'm gonna try to add some rounded. So I want rounded on the right. Say rounded -r. Let's go full, which means the full rounded. You know what? That's kind of a vibe. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of chill. It's already getting somewhere. And then, like I said, on the right side, we would have our section to sign in. So I could try to do something like that. I think what I'll do is I'll have a top level div or do width full. And I'm just going to kind of like add some more padding here. And then inside of here, I'm going to have a little kind of card thing. Max width, I'll do large. Give it height for now. Gray color. And then I'm going to put a title, or actually, no, I'm not going to do a title. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, interesting. I think I want to center it. So on this, higher level thing, we can just say item center. You center this little card div. Boom, now it's a little bit centered. I might reduce that padding because that's a little bit too much. Good. Lighten the color up. All right, that's not bad. So anyways, the next thing we need to do is add the user accounts. Because if we're going to have links to sign in or sign up, we're going to need user accounts in our app to start with. So what I usually do for user authentication is I use a gem called devise. which is actually what a lot of people use. There is a built-in authentication generator in Rails now that was added in Rails 8. The only thing is it doesn't handle sign up, editing accounts. Like, it doesn't handle basically any of the stuff except for signing in and like handling the session and the current user and all that stuff. But it doesn't handle like all the other stuff that you basically want. So in my opinion, Devise is still quite a bit better. It's a gem, which means you do have to rely on other people, but it's so heavily used in the Rails community that I think it's always going to be supported. People are always going to use it just because it's been around and it's such a good gem. What I'll do is I'm going to go into the terminal, clear it out, and I'm going to add the gem by doing a bundle add. We're going to do bundle add devise. I'm also going to add the gem that I created called tailwind_devise, because by default the views for Tailwind, or the views for Devise, for like signing in stuff, they're not styled at all. They're really super ugly. So I created a gem to give you a better starting point, which like totally styles all those pages, makes it look a lot nicer. So we're going to want to add tailwind_devise as well. And I'm going to run this. It's going to grab our brand new gems. As you can see, that was super quick. Now I'm going to run railsg devise :install, do the initial install for devise, and it's going to ask you for a couple things like setting a root. It also kind of tells you to put flash messages, which will just tell you if the sign-in was successful, if there is an error or not. So what I usually do is I'll just copy the notice in the alert. I'll go into our code and I'm going to go over to the views layouts and create a new partial. So I'm going to create a file called _alerts.html.erp, and then we'll just drop this stuff in. And then inside of the application layout file, I'm going to render our partial at the top of the body, which means on any page, if there is an alert, it's going to show up. And we do have to use the full path to the file. Make sure you do layouts/alerts so it knows exactly where to, render this partial from. And now we have that step taken care of. The last thing that you can do is it says you can copy the devise views to customize them, but that's where my gem comes in. Instead of running this command, we run railsg tailwind_devise :views, and it gets you all of those views styled with Tailwind, and it's a lot easier. Now I'm going to restart the server, and we will, actually I forgot to do one thing. I forgot to generate the model that we're going to use. So with Devise, you can actually have as many models as you want, and you can call them whatever you want. It doesn't have to be user, but whenever you generate the model, it'll add like the routes, it'll add all the helpers like current user, or if you didn't call it user, if you called it something else, it'd be like current that object. So this is the step where we generate the model. So to do that, you type railsg devise, and then whatever the name of the model you want to use, although most commonly it really is just user. So we do like user, railsg devise user. But if you wanted to call it something else like creator, and then you have like, if you wanted different accounts, that might be another thing that you do. But for this video, we'll keep it simple and just create a user model. And what it's going to do is it's going to create the model, the migration, and it's going to set up the routes and everything. So now we can run railsdb migrate to migrate the database, and we can go ahead and start the server. And now if we come back in here, there's still really not any difference because we haven't added any links. But if you went into the URL and went to users/sign_in, you'll see that you now have this sign in page, and we can also create an account. Now, one weird thing is that, so the form gets messed up because, or it's not messed up really, but like, see how it's all tiny? That's because my gem relied on the typography plugin for Tailwind. But we can just simply add that in. I'm gonna have to look this up real quick. I think it's super easy to add it. Yeah, all you do is just this. Look, so we go to that, go to our code, go over to assets, Tailwind application.css. Right underneath the import for Tailwind, we can add our plugin for Tailwind CSS typography. That's going to instantly, or wait, not typography, what am I saying? /forms, I don't really know what typography is. That might be text. And look, right away, the form looks way better. It gets larger. So I guess typography is for classes like prose, which I don't know what that really means. You guys probably know it better than me. Anyways, Now we have forms, we have all this stuff working. The next thing we might add is over in this card, and add the links to actually sign in or create an account. Go back to the home page. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some styling to this card real quick. So let's do flex item center and justify center. So it's going to push all the stuff right into the center. We can do gap-4. And yeah, just add in our links now. So I'll start with a sign in link. So we can say link to sign in. This is going to go to the new _user session path. I'm going to add a class. And we can add some simple styling here. Give it a blue background. Take a look at that, and boom, just like that, you have a sign-in link. Probably make that text a little bit larger just so it sticks out. You could also give it a hover effect. What I usually like to do is I do hover scale 105. It's a pretty common effect, but it kind of like increases the size of the button when you hover on it, which it immediately shows you that that's clickable. Now we could also, let's also add the create account link. So what I'll do is I'll just copy sign in and then change this to create account. And we can give it a custom background. I'm kind of thinking like a dark gray for whatever reason. I think it's because TikTok usually does like the dark color. Let's do dark gray with light text, and boom, there we go. We have sign in, create account, and if you click it, it actually does bring you to the sign in page. Now, one thing you'll notice is that we do have this white background because, well, really because we haven't defined a main background on the site yet. So if you wanted to do that, you could just go to the layouts application and you could straight up put your styling right on the body. You have class, and we could just give it like a BG gray 900. That's if we want dark background, which, I mean, that's a little bit easier on the eyes, I feel like. I'm already vibing. This site seems lit. It seems cool. You know what? Now that I said lit, let's add a lit emoji. So let's go to flat icon. That's another site I like to use because there's tons of emojis and they're more colored than hero icons. So hero icon just gives you like a basic emoji, which, look at this, kind of boring. Even if we wanted to look for phone, I'm sure we'd find a way better one here, like a realistic, or like, I mean, okay, maybe not that realistic, but we could get something like this. At least it has color. It looks not bad. But what I was saying is I want to grab the fire emoji. We're going to tell him that it's lit. Something that TikTok, I think they might have this. Grab this. I'm going to download our icon. And I just want to stick it like right on top of these, right on top of this image. Why is it not downloading? Okay, here we go. What I'll do is I'll shove this into the app assets images. Once again, drop in our fire.png. And I'm going to go back to the home page and I want to stick this right on top of the image for the lady. So let's add a div around this. I'm going to set a class of relative, wrap this image tag. And then what I'll do is I can render the fire image. So we'll do image tag fire.png. And I'm going to add some styling to absolute bottom 0, right 0. And also I'll do the width here too. So let's say like width 20. Just to set how big the image is. Let's reload, and boom, we now have the fire icon. Although I want to kind of like overlay it a little bit more. So maybe let's increase the size, and then let's do bottom 8, right 16. See where that ends up. All right, that's not bad. That's actually pretty good. But I kind of want to have like a cool overflow. So let's increase the right to 14. It should kind of be, wait, that's still not that much. Do right 10. So now it's kind of overflowing more, which looks cool. And then I also want to rotate it. I think with Tailwind, you can just say rotate 45, which I think that might be too much. Yeah, it's a little bit too much. Let's do rotate 15. That's not bad. Like fire. And then you know what? Also, I want to do laughing emoji because obviously TikTok is supposed to be entertaining and funny. Let's look for laughing. Yeah, and this one's already rotated, so we could use that. Although I think I'm just going to use this one. Go ahead and download this. And I'm going to drop it into our app. Again, in the app assets images folder. Drop our laugh.png. And all we have to do is just copy the same thing for the fire image, and I'm just going to change it to laugh. So that makes it pretty easy, and I'll just increase the right like a bunch. And I'll rotate the other direction. So, you know, we got those switch ups. Hey, that doesn't look bad, although I want to decrease. I guess they are kind of the same size. That's not bad. I think I want to push it more to the left side though, although it's really not that crazy. So instead of doing right though, we can change this to left, which would basically do the same thing on the left side. And yeah, I think that's a little bit better. Wow, this looks pretty clean. And we might even want to move it down a little bit, although that's not bad. It's really not bad at all. All right, so I think this is pretty sick. So let's just go ahead and create the account and make sure that that works. Although I'm very confident that it works because devise always works. Although wait, it didn't work. Oh, because I'm on the login page. My fault. So I'm gonna try to sign up. And it works. We can't really see the alerts that well. We could probably fix that by making the text lighter on them. Just come over here and add like, well, for notice, that's usually if it's successful. So let's do text green 500. And for alert, we'll do red 500. And that should at least stick out from the back from the background. So now I'm thinking that once you are signed in, you're probably going to get to a different page than the home page. And what it would be is it would be like the feed page. So that's what they usually call it, like social media feed. It's funny because like they are basically just feeding you content. You scroll, you scroll, you scroll, you keep scrolling. So if we wanted to create like a feed controller, we could do that, which is probably a good next step. So why don't we go into the terminal and I'm going to generate that controller. So I'll do railsg controller feed, and I'll do a show page for feed. Restart the server, and then I'm going to go directly over to the routes to make sure that the routes are good. So let's go to config routes.rb, and you'll see that they do define this route at the very top, get feed/show. That's not really how I want the URL to look. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to set a block. So with devise, we can have this method, or there's this method available, authenticated, and then you put in the name of the model. So we say user, and then you can define specific routes that only get affected or only get applied if the user is signed in. And one thing that you can do is change the route. So initially the route might be pages home, but if they're signed in, we can change it. So we can say route, we have to say to, and you also have to say as, because you need a different route name than just this route. So instead of being route path, it's going to be a specific path. So what I usually put is in the as, it'll be authenticated user. And then to the to, that would be whatever controller is going to get rendered. So we're going to do the feed and the show action, just like this. We go ahead and reload. Boom, just like that. We're on the feed page. So that is pretty incredible. Now what I'll do is I'll go over to that feed page. Let's go app views. We now have this folder feed and a show page. I'll just straight up delete all of this stuff. And what I'll probably do is have our own div. So let's do div a screen. And if you wanted to have a custom color here again, you could totally do that. If it helps you distinguish your pages, like, you know, I used to do that a lot when I was learning. But what I'm thinking is that usually on TikTok, most of the screen space is not used. Even on the website, they just have like the center section because all of the videos are a certain ratio. They're not like YouTube videos where it's what is it called, 16:9. So it's like width. It's a wider video with a smaller height. It's exactly the opposite on TikTok because it's usually meant for phone. So what we'd probably have is we'd have like a middle section that shows all of those 9:16 videos. So I'm probably just going to try to create something like that real quick, at least an outline for what, you know, where we'll put the videos. So what I'll do is I'll have a flex, let's do justify center, and then we're going to put another div inside of it. And I'm just going to give it a width for now. Let's do 30 view width, and we'll just do height. Let's do height screen, and then we'll just give it a background color that sticks out. So let's do BG gray 500, and we'll go ahead and reload, and boom, that's a pretty good start. We just have like this racing stripe in the middle. I guess we could increase from 30 view height or view width, I mean, to 45 view width. Maybe 40 view width. I think, yeah, pretty good. I might also just say like height full. We can have a slight bit of padding. Now, yeah, you can totally tell that's supposed to be like a TikTok. And then what we could do is for right now, I'm just gonna do flex, specify center, item center. I'm gonna put a little message just to remind us to build this. What I'll do is I'll put a little message just as a placeholder that says like, put video here. Right now we don't have videos, of course. We haven't created that model. We have the user model, which is actually good. Maybe the next thing we should do is have a nav bar, because of course there would be a nav bar just so that a user can sign out at least. So to do that, we can go over to the layouts and create the partial. So I'm going to create a new file called _navbar.html.erb. I'm going to create this simple navbar. It'll just be width full, height 16, do fixed, top 0. We could also do sticky, although I think fixed might be better. There's kind of a lot of stuff to think about when you're doing this. I think fixed will work though. And we can give it a background color. I'll do this gray. Then I'm going to put another class inside of it. I'm going to have a max width, width full, mx auto, do some padding. And I'll do flex, item center, justify between. And then I'll start off with just like a home link. We do link to, and you could just say home, or you could say like the name of your app. I usually see a lot of people doing that. So say like TikTok Rails or whatever. And this is going to go to either root path or just like slash. I'm going to go with slash just so, yeah, because it works for me. And I'm going to put a class, and let's make the text larger, a little bit lighter, and then see how this comes together. Oh, right. We're not rendering the navbar yet. We created the partial, but we now have to go over to the layouts application, and we're going to render it right on top of the alerts. So let's use basically the same thing. We're just going to render layout slash navbar like that. Then we reload. We now have a navbar. It does kind of overflow the video a little bit. We can always fix that later. So I'm going to go back to the navbar. One thing I noticed is that I did item center to align the text, but it's still at the top, and I think that's because we need to add height full to this inner div, and yep, right away that kind of fixed it. All right, and then when you click here, obviously it would bring you back to the root path. And then what I'll probably do is on the right side, for now, I'm going to check if current user, just to avoid any errors, and then we'll put a link to sign out. Say sign out, and this is going to go to destroy user session path. And yeah, let me turn it to a little button. Give it a background color. Maybe gonna do a border. I don't know. I just feel like I feel like seeing a border right now. Not a border. Not like yeah. I'm not gonna say it. Turbo method delete. Because we need to make this send a delete request. Alright, yeah, that actually looks pretty sweet. Click sign out, and boom. This app is already coming along greatly. It's beautiful. Okay, I might be in love with this app. Now, one thing we didn't do is we didn't add usernames for our TikTok users. So that's probably something we want to do right away. So for adding a username with device, it's pretty simple. So the first thing you do is you'd add a new field to the user model. So we can do that with the migration. So I'm going to do a Rails-G migration, add username to underscore users. Then we can do username, which will just be type string. We could simply migrate the database, and we now have a new username field on the users table. So now to allow that to be set, we need to override devise. So I'm just gonna look this up real quick because it's hard to remember it right off the top of your head. If we come in here, okay, this. Come on. There we go. I think this is almost right. Before filter. So what we'll do is we'll go and drop this code on the controller's application controller. And if you guys are watching the video and you want to grab the same code, I mean, you could either pause and like write this code, or you could just look up the same thing that I did, you know, devise username. You'll probably find this code. Now what we'll do is we have, I guess, yeah, this looks good. So we have a before filter that's going to run our code, but only if it's the devise controller. And then right here, we're going to permit these keys, which I don't think you have to actually hard code all of them like this guy did. I think you only have to set the additional ones, which for us is just username. And we're going to do this for signing up and also for account update. So now users will be able to have username. So the next thing we do is we have to update the form. You go over to the app, views, devise. Let's start at registrations new. So what I'll do is I'm just going to copy this email code, drop it in, and I'll change this from username. Instead of email field, it's of course going to be text fields. And let's get rid of autofocus because you can really only have one element with autofocus on. For autocomplete, we can set that to username. And just like that, we now have a username field for signing up. Although, oh, it looks like there's an error because there's no method called before filter. I think they got rid of that. It's like an old Rails thing. So it's not before filter anymore. It's actually before action. We can reload and boom, no more errors. And if we go to create account, oh wait, look. The sign in and the create account button actually go to the same exact place. That's funny, I didn't catch that. What we actually want to do is go back to the views. Where is it? The home page. So let's go to the pages home. And look, create account is going to the wrong place. Instead of new user session, it's supposed to be new user registration path. And we can go there and boom, now we have this updated form, which is going to allow us to pass in an email, a username, and a password. This is pretty sweet. So I'm going to put in my email. For my username, let's go Indigo, and then put in the password. And boom, I'm signed in just like that. So the next thing we could do is let's print the username in the nav bar, just so we can verify that that is working. What I'll do is I'll add a div around the sign out link, and we'll do flex item center gap 4. And I'm just going to use like a span for right now. And we'll just simply print out the current user username. I'm going to nest all this content and end off the div, and boom, just like that, Indigo is right there. So the username did work. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, we now have user accounts. We have this like outline for where we're going to put the videos. The next thing that we need is that actual video model. So let's get straight into that. To generate our new model, we can just do Rails G. We probably can do scaffold because scaffold makes things so much easier. It's going to create the whole form. It's basically like using devise for users. You can just scaffold your features and it'll give you the whole CRUD setup. If you don't know about CRUD, it just means you can create a post, you can look at it, you can view all of the posts, you can update it, you can delete it. It has all that stuff built in when you do a scaffold. And that's different than just doing like a controller where, you know, it only gives you the simple controller with no code. When you do a scaffold, it actually it almost builds the feature for you, which is insane. You do Rails G scaffolds and then put the name of our model. So I was calling it videos, although I don't know if that'll get confusing because we're also going to have a field on it probably called video. So I might just call it post. That's like a standard thing, of course, like you have social media posts and you can view other people's posts. So I think we'll just call it a post. We'll do Rails G scaffold post. And then we can think about what options we want to have on it. And think about even what TikTok does. I think they have like a caption. They have a description. Now description would be type text because it's going to be a larger amount of content. I think you can shove you can actually put like thousands of characters. Like you can put a whole book in the description. I don't really know what the limit is. We can check that out later. But at the very minimum, we'll have caption, description. We're also going to have the user who posted it. So we're going to add a user :belongs to. And then lastly, but not leastly, we're going to have that video field. So I think TikTok actually allows you to have multiple videos, multiple maybe even images. But for this right now, let's just use one video to start. We can always update this later. So we'll do video colon attachment. And yeah, we could just press enter and check out all the stuff that it did. It literally did a bunch. Created a controller, added the views, added routes, all this stuff. And all you have to really do is just migrate the database with Rails DB migrate. Although because we're using active storage, you also have to run a command for active storage. You have to run Rails active storage :install. And just like that, it's going to copy the migrations for active storage. And we're going to have to actually migrate one more time. So we probably could have done that all in one, but it's not a big deal. So now let's go back to our app by doing bin/dev. Come back in here, and we now have a whole post page set up. That's what Scaffold does. So if you go to /posts, boom, see it says no post found, and there's actually links, but they're hidden by the navbar, which is kind of annoying. So I think what I'll do right away to fix that navbar problem, let's go to layouts application, and I'm just going to add enough padding to push all the content on our site below the navbar. So since the navbar is height 16, all we have to do is add padding top 16 to push all of the content down. Now it might affect some of our pages, although actually no, it actually doesn't affect it that much. It just makes it basically better. So now if we go back to the URL /posts, check it out. We have all this stuff already set up. And click new post, brings us to the form. Obviously it's not that pretty, but I think it's just because the text is dark. We can always fix that. So what I'll probably do is let's just add a link to create a new post. I'm probably going to move this stuff like the sign out link into a drop down too. But for right now, we can just go to navbar and I'm going to stick it in line. I'm going to add a new link. So let's do link to create post. This is going to go to the new _post path. And I'm going to add some styling. And for this one, I want to do a cool gradient just so they know like this is the cool stuff right here. They definitely have to click on the create post. Reload. Boom, we have this colorful button. Click on it, it'll actually bring you to the form to create a new post. And then we can quickly make this look a little bit better by going to our views, and you'll notice we now have this posts folder with all this content inside. So the page that we're going to focus on now is the new page. So if we take a look inside of here, we have like this width. That's why it's a little bit smaller, I guess you could say. We could probably just remove this, and I'm going to add my own max width. Say max width 2XL, width full, MX auto. And then a simple thing we could do is just add a background color to make it stand out. Do like BG gray 300, and boom, that's already a simple little improvement. We could do a little bit of padding and stuff, and I'll probably just I'll push it down from the top. We do margin top, and boom, that's already a decent start. So if we look at this new post form, it's actually like, it's pretty clean right out of the box. This is pretty clean. It's obviously not as good UI as TikTok, but it's also, you could consider it a little bit better. I don't know. One thing that we want to get rid of is the user field. We do not need to pass this in because we're already going to use whatever the current user is for the user field. So let's go ahead and remove that. So that's being rendered right here in the form partial. Let's go to post _ form. And I'm just going to remove this user ID field. Boom, we can reload, and now the form is slimmed down. Now we could totally try to create a post right now, but we do have to update the controller because we're not setting the user. It's just going to try to create a post without a user, which would cause an error. So I'm just going to might as well like, I'm going to go and update that first before I even try. Let's go to app controllers, post controller, and let's take a look at this. So first of all, I don't want anybody to be able to create a post or anything if they're not signed in. So that's one little security thing we can handle by just simply adding a before action at the top and saying that you have to be authenticated. So we can say authenticate user. Now, see, if I go back here, there's no problem because we're already signed in. But if I tried to, let's say, go to the page in incognito, it's going to say like, no, you need to sign in first before you can go to that page, which is good. The next thing I'm going to update inside of here is wherever we're saying post.new, I'm going to say like user dot post.new. The same thing in create. I can just copy this, which means it'll create the post off of the user instead of just creating the general post. And if we reload, we actually get an error. This goes back to that issue where when you generate a model, the parent doesn't know about the association, even though the child knows about the parent. We have to quickly solve that problem by going to the app models. And I'll show you, like, if you go to post.rb, it knows that it belongs to user, but the user model doesn't know that it has posts until you add this line that says has many posts. And now, boom, you just set that connection. The user knows about the posts. If we reload, that error will go away. And we're now going to be able to create our post. So I don't even know if I have a video to post. It's a funny thing. I could probably, I'll go grab one of my shorts for my channel. Okay, so I now have acquired a video. I'm not going to tell you how, but it's actually my video anyways, so it didn't matter. I'm going to click it right here. We have the video selected. Now I'm going to set a caption. Say like generate AI videos pyramid flow, because that's what the short was about. You can put a description like a showcase of one of my tutorials. Now let's go ahead and create the post. And boom, just like that, we were able to create our post, which is pretty sweet. So now if we go back to the main page, what I'd like to do is actually like render all the posts. And then we can try to figure out some sort of algorithm. And of course, add in all the features that people love about TikTok, like liking posts, reposting, adding comments, all that stuff. But to start it off, let's just go over to the feed page, go to the show, and let's get into rendering these posts. So right now we have this little outline thing here. We can probably still use this. What I'll do is I'm going to loop over all the posts. So first of all, I'm going to define a post instance variable on the controller. So let's go to the controller, feed controller, and I'm going to set an at post equal to, let's just do post.all. And what I'll do is I'll just simply render over all the posts. We can say post.h2, or actually, I'm probably going to put this into a partial. So why don't we keep it simple and say render partial post, and then we'll pass in collection at post. Just as simple as that. And I'll copy this placeholder, and I'm going to go and stick this in that partial. So I'm going to create a new file inside of our feed folder called underscore post.html.rb. And I'll drop in the placeholder here. And then what we'll do is, why don't we just check, so we'll check if the video is attached by saying if post.video attached. By the way, that's what I love about Ruby and Ruby on Rails, is literally like what I say is what we write in the code. Think about it. No other programming language works this way. Pretty incredible. So if that case is true, if there was a video attached, we're just going to simply put a video tag, pass in post.video. And one thing about videos in HTML is you have to set controls true as a variable to actually play the video. Otherwise, it's just going to show you a snapshot and it doesn't like autoplay. You can also set autoplay, but we don't really need that. And I'll do an else. So if the else case, instead of saying put video here, we could just say like no video found for whatever reason. If someone created a post with no video, and boom, check that out. We have our post showing up. Now, one weird thing is that it looks like the page is kind of like overflowing with the nav bar, even though we add the padding. Let me go to the layouts application. We should have padding top 16, which means that it shouldn't overflow. Oh, huh. Got lost. I think it's because we're doing the height screen class. So let's go back to feed show. We do have height screen here, so eventually, like, I don't really know what we'd use for height. Let's just say height full instead. And boom, that does totally fix it. And we're able to, boom, check that out. We're able to watch our short on the platform. And of course, if we had more shorts, you can post as many as you want now. This is pretty incredible. Oh wait, one thing real quick on mobile. The styling for mobile is not right. Styling for website is good. On mobile, it's not really. So I think we want to go to the feed post partial, right? And we have the set width. Probably on mobile, we could just say width full. And then let's do like on large screens, we'll do this fixed width. And then boom, already looks great. I want to learn how to make this is already so cool. You can even go into full screen if you want. This is beautiful. Yeah, I don't even have any more shorts. I'm gonna have to go and get some shorts to post on this platform. But I think this is a great place to end the first part to the series. And of course, I'm going to come back to this. We're going to build all the features inside of TikTok. We'll even build the mobile apps. And then possibly I'll show you how to launch this onto a server. Just let me know what you guys are interested in seeing specifically. I'd love to build it. But I hope you guys enjoyed this first part to the series where we got basics of the app setup. And yeah, love all you guys. Thanks for watching my videos. I really appreciate you supporting me. I'm really excited to be making these videos and to keep going into the future with you guys. Yeah. Peace.